Frid och shalom älskade vänner och välkomna till morgonnyheterna den 30/10. Ja, vi hade ju möte i Parousia mission igår och Guds välsignelse till alla som var med på nätet och alla som lyssnar nu i efterhand. Vi tog upp en del saker där då. Jag vill börja här bara berätta om 2 stycken upplevelser som jag haft i anden som kan vara väldigt bra att veta om just nu då. Vad som har skett och vad som kommer att ske. Här kommer alltså ett profetiskt budskap då. Jag befinner mig då på en plats och helt plötsligt då i anden då så ser jag hur den här platsen förvandlades till en massa skyltar, ni vet, som är gamla tyska skrifter från 1939 då, att judar var förbjudna och så. Hela alltså atmosfären förändrades på nolltid. Jag fick gå genom den här gatan och folk pekade och spottade åt mig och det var 2 stycken grupper av människor. Och när jag kom igenom det här då, de kunde inte röra mig. Då talade Herren från himlen och sa att de har hatat mig utan orsak. Så det är ju tydligt här att Herren, Messias, står bakom och älskar sitt judiska folk. Och vi som tror borde ju också då stå upp för Israel. Men det kommer ju att bli en skiljelinje här mellan de som står upp för Israel och de som inte står. Och här kommer nästa profetiska budskap då. Jag kommer fram till en plats och får, precis som i Esekiel, se in i den här platsen. Här samlas teologer och här samlas kyrkoledare och allt möjligt. Och jag hör hur man talar här inne och det var kolsvart mörker här. Och här säger man alltså att man hatade oss för att vi stod upp för Israels berg. Det innebär ju alltså, kära älskade vänner, att det kommer en skiljelinje i kristenheten där om vi älskar judarna och Israel eller inte. Det kommer ju att avgöra de här 2 linjerna. Och redan ser vi ju en märkbar tystnad i kristenheten. Man vet ju inte riktigt hur man ska hantera det här riktigt, tror jag. Ja, ska vi gå till nyheterna då, så finns det ju en debatt idag som jag kommer att kopiera och lägga in på en pdf-fil, eller vi. Den är från Aftonbladet faktiskt och det är följande. 1775 blev Aron Isak, en judisk köpman från Mecklenburg, den första juden som tilläts att bosätta sig här i Sverige utan att konvertera. År 2025 firar vi 250-årsjubileumet av denna händelse. 250 år av judiskt liv i Sverige, vars påverkan kan ses överallt i vår svenska kultur, från adventsljusstakarna i fönstren till kulturella institutioner som Konserthuset och varför inte Göteborgsvitsarna. Men för första gången någonsin tvivlar jag på att det kommer finnas några judar kvar i Sverige för att fira 300-årsjubileet. Aldrig tidigare har jag hört så mycket oro och rädsla över framtiden från mina judiska vänner. Vänner som säger att det inte längre går att bo här. Som manar sina barn att absolut inte visa sin judiska identitet i skolorna. Eller tala om vad som sker nere i Israel och Gaza just nu. Vänner vars barn frågar varför folk hatar dem. Om någon kommer att mörda dem. Vänner som är rädda för att identifiera som judar. Vänner som kollar upp hur man döljer sina uppgifter på Ratsit för att man har ett judiskt namn. Jag tror inte judar i Sverige har känt det så här eller ställt så här frågor sedan andra världskriget. Då var Sverige trots sin problematiska politik och attityd mot judar fortfarande ändå en fristad, en säker plats. Men så känns det inte längre, säger den här mannen då, det var en jude då som talade här i Aftonbladet av alla tidningar. En flygplats i staden Mashaia i södra Ryssland har stängt ner efter att den har stormats, och vi vet ju, eftersom vi följer Amir, att det handlade alltså om såna här då pro-palestinska grupper. Och det står här att 20 personer har skadats. Det här är ju antisemitismen som blommar upp nu i hela världen. Och det här, älskade vänner, det är ett tidstecken alltså. Och Amir Tsarfati skrev igår med stora bokstäver på Telegram. Och vi kopierade och la in det på vår sida också. Jag uppmanar alla judar i hela världen att överväga att stanna där de är och börja planera för att flytta till Israel. Amir Tsarfati, Telegram. Ja, IDF opererar redan djupt nu inne i Gaza. Hamas-terrorister dödas och terrorinfrastrukturen förstörs. Och här följer den vanliga videon då med vad som har hänt med kartor, diagram och bilder. I Jesu namn, Gud välsigna er, här kommer den.
Tanks continue to gather at 3 points in the north of Gaza. Following the attacks by Israeli forces the previous day, they are still engaging in clashes with terrorists who have become active again in the region. Over 30 tanks located on the coastal strip south of the Zikim area have started to cross the border once again. The Hamas terrorist organization is targeting these tanks with anti-tank missiles as they begin to settle in the vacant lands located to the northwest of Beit Lahia town. In this situation, the tanks attack towards the area where the terrorists are located from their positions on the vacant land. During the conflict, bulldozers have started clearing obstacles in the area to allow the tanks to move more freely. Additionally, Israeli soldiers continue to conduct a comprehensive mine clearance operation in the area to secure the progress of the tanks. Following the attacks on Beit Lahia town, the Hamas organization has currently shifted its main focus towards the area where the tanks are located in the northwest. They are continuously attempting to target Israel's main battle tanks from the tops of tall buildings. In this situation, the forward tank unit directly strikes the area where the attacking terrorists are located. Then the tank unit behind the forward unit opens covering fire in the area, waiting for the forward unit to withdraw. Once the forward unit returns, the supporting unit advances to carry out the attack. Thus, the forward unit opens covering fire to protect the unit providing supporting fire. In short, Israeli tanks are constantly on the move after launching a strong attack against the terrorists. This is because if the tanks in the area remain stationary, they can become easy targets for the terrorists. Therefore, the tanks need to keep moving constantly. Another area where the clashes have intensified is the southern part of the 4th Highway. Due to the presence of numerous structures in this area, there are continuous attacks against Israeli tanks. Special Forces units therefore continue to move from the north of Beit Hanun town to establish a secure area, as the tanks can only advance to a certain extent. Special Forces, with the cover fire provided by the tanks, are dispersing over a wide area to destroy booby traps in the region and have started entering the outermost residential areas of the town to create a safe zone in the north of the town. Due to the continuous attacks by terrorists on the Special Forces in this area, the Israeli General Staff had to open an additional corridor towards the town. Mechanized units positioned in the Sterot forest in the easternmost areas of the town have now started to move. Israeli forces have also begun infiltrating the western part of the town to establish a secure area. As these events indicate, the Israeli army continues to conduct regional ground operations. Due to the high presence of terrorists in the Jabalia region, Israeli drones have started active patrols in the area. However, a small number of terrorist groups moving from Jabalia towards Beit Hanun are attempting to hinder the progress of Israeli special forces in the region. Consequently, conflicts have erupted between the special forces and Hamas organization. The reserve tank units currently located in the Sterot forests continue to directly target the areas where terrorists launch attacks. Local sources have reported that due to the intensity of the clashes, Hamas has suffered significant losses. However, sources mention that some of Israel's tanks were hit as a result of missile attacks, but damaged tanks have been withdrawn directly from the border, It seems that the Hamas organization has devised a significant defense plan in the northern part of Gaza. This is evident because the organization has not shown much resistance in the areas close to the borders. They are targeting special forces units that continuously conduct surprise raids from Jabalia to the border towns and clear booby traps in the region. After a short attack, the organization quickly withdraws. As a result, the Israeli Air Force has begun targeting identified gathering areas for terrorists in the Jabalia vicinity. Following these attacks, Israeli special forces have started advancing 1 kilometer deep into the north and northeast of Beit Hanun. After securing the area, bulldozers continue to remove fences in the border region. In the northwest of the Beit Lahia region, Israeli tanks have been able to advance up to 2 kilometers in some open areas, while in other areas, they have only managed to advance 500 meters. In these open areas, the number of infantry units is quite low due to the constant movement of tanks. Therefore, to counter a possible ambush in this region due to the shortage of infantry, Israeli attack helicopters are patrolling the area continuously. Furthermore, the Navy has started providing protection for this tank group. SAR cruisers are safeguarding the area with tanks, and they have initiated efforts to prevent potential ambushes on these tanks. Given the continuous patrolling of drones in the area, the SAR cruiser is expected to provide the initial response in case of a possible ambush. Subsequently, attack helicopters will engage in patrol for more precise attacks. In the heart of Gaza, the border patrol unit located in the Kisufim forest is constantly under attack. The area, despite being referred to as a forested region, had a lack of trees and insufficient elevation, which is why the tanks responsible for protecting the area had to be positioned slightly further west of the border. The point where the border fences are located at this specific spot is slightly higher compared to other points. To avoid being an easy target, tanks have positioned themselves using the advantage of elevation, with only the barrels and the turret of the tank visible. This way, the tanks, which are difficult for terrorists to target, can respond promptly in the event of a possible attack. In the area just north of where the tanks are located, in the eastern part of the Bureij refugee camp, terrorist groups opened fire on Israeli soldiers at the border with machine guns. To suppress the fire coming from 3 different points, Israeli forces used the height advantage in the area where the border fences are located to establish a solid trench directly. Israeli forces in the trench then launched a strong counterattack against the groups attacking from 3 different points. As a result of the clashes in this area, Israeli forces managed to cross the border and reach the outer neighborhoods to the east of the Bureij town. Due to the urban operations that took place in this area, the terrorists had to withdraw due to their losses. However, due to Hamas forces launching mortar attacks on this area, Israeli soldiers were forced to withdraw to the border. In the southwestern border of Lebanon, the Israeli Air Force initiated a large-scale operation targeting Hezbollah terrorist organizations' gathering areas. Due to Hezbollah's continuous attacks in the forested area north of the city of Shlomi, the Israeli Air Force began bombing the region relentlessly. As a result, significant explosions occurred in 5 different areas. Following the bombardment, Hezbollah forces started to take cover deep within the forested area. In the city of Arab al-Aramshi, sirens went off. Israeli air defense systems detected that Hezbollah terrorist organization had launched missiles towards this area. Subsequently, the air defense system successfully intercepted the attacks. Following this, artillery units in the northeast of the city initiated a heavy bombardment on the area where the attacking terrorists were located. It is estimated that the terrorists suffered significant casualties following the bombardment. On the other hand, the Hezbollah terrorist organization launched an attack on the town of Margaliyot to the west of Kiryat Shmona, the largest city in the north. The terrorists carried out the attack with guided anti-tank missiles targeting the border town. During the attacks, no casualties were reported due to the sirens in the area. Subsequently, Israeli drones conducted extensive reconnaissance activities in the region. However, the exact locations of the terrorists in this area could not be fully determined. To show your support and help us continue providing information.
This is the Balagan Connection, and we're about 3 weeks after the terrible event, and this is going to be a little bit of an update about what's going on and a couple of things. Today I want to talk about what's happened in these 3 weeks and maybe a little bit about what's not happened in the 3 weeks. And if we have enough time to get into what's changed and what is profoundly changed. So let's start off with what happened. We all know about the attack, but what we're getting from the 7th of October attack is the brutality. We're seeing more and more evidence to the down-route brutality. We found recordings of the terrorists calling their parents in Gaza on the phones of the people that they killed, saying, "Mama, Daddy, I've just now killed 10 Jews." By the way, they said 10 Jews, not 10 Israelis. You know, and look at me, I'm so great. And the father saying, "Wonderful, son, we really like what you're doing." So we're getting that. We're connecting to the horror of what happened. And on the other hand, we're hearing praise. Praise for these terrorists, praise for these martyrs, praise for this jailbreak, praise for these oppressed people. And what's even more concerning for us is the denial. No, it didn't happen. The Jews are smart. They put an AI together and all of this is just pictures. And more, we're hearing more and more people denying because the world, especially the progressive world, who thought that these were the freedom fighters and these were can't wrap their heads around the brutality and the terror of what they're doing. And we've moved into a very interesting dynamic of who is the victim. And the world is now separating, just like the Red Sea, okay, about are the Jews the victims or are the Palestinians the victims? And you can know exactly who people are depending on who they victimize. And there's this interesting kind of polarization, for lack of a better word, that's going on right now. That's going to play an interesting role both in your society and it's going to play an interesting role in your elections. And we're going to see that as we go along. In the meantime, Israel is bombing, and I'm going to say this again, is bombing military targets in Gaza. We know that there's going to be a land excursion, and we know that there's going to be a war going on, and Israel is preparing for that. So that has been going on today. We're getting information from the terrorists that we have. We have about 100 of the perpetrators of this brutality in Israeli custody, and they're giving us intelligence. We've got information that we're bringing in. So in preparation for a ground excursion into Gaza, we are starting to take out the targets. But another thing that's happening, and we're talking, the world is talking about a lot more, is the humanitarian crisis. Because a lot of the people living in the northern part of Gaza have moved to the southern part of Gaza to get away. By the way, Hamas has actually literally shot people for moving out of their homes in the war zone in order to get away from this. But the humanitarian crisis is becoming more and more of an issue. And more of the dynamics on the internet is, oh, those poor Palestinians, they're in the middle of a humanitarian crisis. We have to solve it. I'm going to tell you truthfully, maybe Israel doesn't really feel very much about that right now, but Israel is willing for a solution to the humanitarian crisis on the southern part of the Gaza Strip. But again, nobody is saying that. So that's more or less what happened. Let's talk about what's not happened. And the most glaring thing that's not happening is the ground offensive. Israel has not gone in to take out Hamas. We pulled up the men, we've trained them, we've brought the forces to the edge of the Gaza Strip, but Israel has not gone in yet, and everybody's asking why not. Most of us believe, and I think you will get this from different places in the internet also, is that the United States is holding Israel back because the United States wants to do some kind of negotiation that combines the humanitarian crisis with the Israeli hostages. And from what we're hearing, the stress is on the hostages that have either American or other European citizenship. Like we're going to separate the Jews again. We're going to say these ones are Israelis and these ones are Americans, so we're going to take care of them and not take care of them. But there is a feeling that there is something holding the United States back in order to do something about the hostages. There's talk about a hostage negotiation going on right now. And as of now, the ground offensive hasn't started up. The second thing that has not happened is the war in the north. Everybody, and from the beginning of this, we thought that there was going to be a big war in the north, the Hezbollah in Iran, and that has now not happened. That has not happened probably for two main reasons. Reason number one, Israel moved major amounts of forces, including people that I know, up into the north to get prepared for this. And reason number two is that the United States of America moved an aircraft carrier not far from the borders of Lebanon and actually said to the Hezbollah in Iran, stand down. And as of now, they have not decided. Now, don't get me wrong. There's rockets coming on the border. There's attacks, but not the all-out war that we see. And the third thing that's not happened is the world is not really talking about this total, undeniable connection between Iran and what happened in Gaza. Iran is the main perpetrator of this. And one of the things I'm going to use to tie what happened and what not happened is the hostages. 220 Israeli hostages. Some of them as young as 8 months old. Some of them as old as 80 years old are in the hands of the Hamas. In the middle of this situation. Okay, this has happened. What is not happening is the world is not screaming about those hostages. If a Mexican drug lord crossed over the border into El Paso or into Texas and took 200 people, American citizens, into Mexico and is holding them in basements in Mexico, the United States of America would be all over the world. The world would be all over it. I don't hear enough noise about 220 civilians that have been taken hostage in this situation. That says a lot to us. And the last thing I want to tie together today, because one of the things that's happened in the last 3 weeks is a major shift or a major change on our side. And let's talk about our side before I talk about your side. The first thing is the our side and your side. There's a difference. We totally believe that the world does not understand what we've gone through. The United States of America, people sitting in Europe, people sitting around the world, they don't understand us. They don't understand the horror of having somebody come into your house, take your wife, kill your children, and steal your grandma. It doesn't, I don't think the world has a feeling for that. And we've got this growing feeling among us that this is, nobody's going to really understand us. And I think this is something that we need to pray about and connect to. One of the differences is a lot of basic concepts have changed for us here. The first concept is a concept of peace. We had people who thought it was going to be, I was a leftist, if you want to put that. I thought we could reach peace with the Palestinians. I thought we could reach peace with these people. They're pragmatic enough. They're understanding enough. They're reasonable enough. That's dead. Most Israelis have killed the peace on what happened in the 7th of October. We now know who the enemy is. We thought we could get along, but no. The hatred, and I'm going to say something that most Americans don't understand. And again, I know I'm speaking to mostly Christian population, Christian audience. The evil that was perpetrated on the 7th of October is something that we were surprised about. I thought there was no evil like this in the world. And I'm sure that a lot of people sitting over there don't really understand the deepness of that evil. And it's time to wake up to the fact that in a world where there is a God and there's a lack of God, there is right and there is downright undescribable evil. And I think that is something that we've realized very, very deeply. Another concept that we've lost is strength. We're not as strong as we thought we were. We were not as sure as we thought we were. We were not as smart as we thought we were. Everything, that's shifted everything. And just like a person can, the whole country is going through PTSD. And that we have to be very, very careful not to sink into despair, because that kind of takes us into despair. We lost trust. We've lost the strength. We lost the feeling that the army is strong enough. We've lost our leadership, and that's part of what's going on. But the last thing, and I think the most important thing that I want to convey today, is that we have lost the trust in everything else. And I'm watching how quickly the world shifted from poor Israelis get raped and beaten by the Hamas to Israel is the perpetrator. It's terrible what happened, but there's a context. It's terrible what happened, but don't kill other people. It's terrible what happened, but don't deny us. And we have lost trust in the fact that the world even accepts or understands who we are. And let me go back to, we are also Israelis, but those people that crossed over Gaza into this side were not coming only to kill Israelis, they were coming to kill Jews. And Jew killing is something that we know deeply about. Jew killing is something that we've got in our DNA. And again, we thought that was over. We thought we could trust the modern Western world. We were wrong. And when we hear people justifying this and saying this is something that is acceptable, if you in the Western world can accept and justify this, that means we cannot trust you anymore. And if I add on the fact that all of this has been instigated and orchestrated by Iran, and I add on to the fact that the United States administration, starting with Obama and now with Biden, has been appeasing Iran and trying to find and hasn't really realized what they were planning and what they wanted to do, and accepted Iran's meddling and has not put Iran in its place, we don't trust you anymore. We don't trust you to have our backs. We don't trust you to be the reasonable. And I think this is a major shift. Now, why am I saying this here? Because the Balagan Connection is mostly connected to a Christian audience. And if a Christian audience is a church-going audience, you use this. And if you use this, you know who we are. You know what we are. We're not always right. We're not always good. But we're God's chosen people. And we've gone up and we've gone down. But God has said again and again, I will not desert my people. So if you read this and you understand what we're going through, it's time to stand up. And I'm going to read a passage from Ezekiel that connects to this. And I want you to pay close attention to this because, again, I've used this before and other people have used this before. But this is Ezekiel 22, verse 30. And it says this: I sought out a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it. But I found no one. Therefore I poured out my wrath on them, and I have consumed them with fire and my wrath, and I have recompensated their deeds on their heads. We were destroyed at least once because there was nobody to stand in that gap. I know I'm talking to people who do stand in that gap. But we need your help. We need your support. We need your prayer. We need your political support. We need your financial support. But more than everything, we need your spiritual support. This is now time for people who take this Bible seriously